Hey everybody, Marcy Bullock with some tips on developing relationships during a pandemic. So check out my YouTube station, Marcy Bullock. I have some other networking videos that I have designed. They're all 10 minutes long to help you with this topic, which is hard right now because we're all struggling. But today I want to hit on some really specific things. I want to give you a warning, first of all. If you've ever been called shy or introverted, meaning that you get your energy from inside and not from interacting with others. You may start to feel a little dizzy during this presentation. Just hold on to your seat. It's all going to pass. I need to begin with a quick quiz. I'm just going to ask you to count on your fingers the number of yeses you get. So, first off, have you met 3 new people in the last month? Have you followed up with each person after you met? Do you really listen and retain information about new people you meet? Do you have time to develop deep relationships with people around you? Have you made an appointment with a mentor with no agenda other than to connect? Those are the first 5. Now, these are hard questions. The right answer is yes, but if you don't get a lot of yeses, it's okay. I want you to tally up the number of yeses you get so that today in this 10 minutes, we can help you up your score. The next one is, did you love big birthday parties as a kid? Have you gone to an outdoor lunch with a non-family member over the age of 25 in the last week? Have you reached out to someone who looks up to you to offer value this semester? Have you attended a professional meeting in the last 6 months? It could be virtual. Do you have a professional contact database that you keep current, such as LinkedIn? Have you used Zoom to have a virtual tea, coffee, just a chat with a mentor? When you meet someone new, do you listen and engage in a lively conversation? Are you good with names? Do you have at least 3 confidants you can call right now to get advice? Do you consider yourself outgoing, extroverted, or social? In a reception setting, do you mingle with ease with people you do not know? Do you embrace the challenge of leaving your comfort zone at an unfamiliar event? Have you ever, before COVID, shaken hands with a dean or chancellor? We might not be shaking hands a lot in the future. Does your academic advisor know you by first name? And then finally, our last question. Have you emailed a trusted mentor to ask for advice this semester? Now, some of the questions on this sheet are interesting because if you're good with names, that means you pay attention and you listen to people's names and you remember them. A lot of times we kind of go in this coma and we're not really paying attention when we meet people. And then later we go, I don't know that person's name. For example, if I'm watching my favorite comedy on TV, like Schitt's Creek, I might just zone out and not pay attention to anyone's names because I'm not trying to remember their names. Actually, I do remember Alexis. But in real life, I want to pay attention because that shows someone that I care enough to remember their name. My tip on that one is repeat their name and then come up with some mental imagery in your head to remember their name. So I met Omara and I pictured Omara in the backyard on a horse, a female horse, which is a mare. And the next time I saw her, I remembered Omara because I came up with that imagery in my head. I also met someone recently named Namir. And so I came up with a very catchy way to remember his name as well. This just means you're putting effort in. And in all of these quiz questions, it's about putting effort in. So if you've ever been called an E or an extrovert, that means you might have one of the higher scores on this quiz. Maybe you're a mingleaholic, you love interacting with other people. Maybe you've mastered it, you're very observant of others, you listen a lot and interact, or you're an apprentice. Today, you're going to get some great tips. But if you're challenged or phobic, it's 100% great for you to get some wonderful tips today. Don't feel bad if you got 10 or less. I made this really hard on purpose. Of course, we have a pandemic, so it's not easy to do this. We have to be really creative. So, how do you raise your score? Just remember that you're not alone when it comes to meeting someone new. A lot of us are afraid to interact with new people because we're afraid of rejection. So, if you commit to improving by watching role models who interact, joining different groups like Toastmasters, and letting go of stereotypes such as this is manipulative to network, it's schmoozing, I don't like it. Remember, as humans, it's in our DNA to commune. And there was a study at Stanford that looked at how people defined success when they left. And it had nothing to do with their IQ or their studies and their numbers on a intelligent quotient. It was all emotional intelligence and their ability to have a conversation with anyone, the Uber driver, whenever we get in Ubers again, and have that person say, I liked you. So, a couple of mindsets to practice here: generosity and vulnerability. I got this from one of the books I read called Never Eat Alone by Keith Ferrazzi. And he also wrote Who's Got Your Back. So, first of all, if you have a generous mindset, you are trying to help other people succeed. So, you're thinking about ways to get deeper in your relationship with them. You move to profound sharing once you can open up that avenue to giving. Give them the satisfaction of helping you. If you need help from a mentor, like a question on that sheet, but you feel intimidated, like, oh, they're too busy. Remember, we're all stuck at home during a pandemic. We would probably welcome the opportunity to interact with someone else. It makes us feel good. So it's actually generous for you to ask. Sounds counterintuitive. I received 100 alumni who agreed to do mock virtual interviews with my students this semester because they know what it's like to be in this pandemic. And they're thinking, oh my gosh, just imagine if this happened when I was in college. Let me give back, let me help. If someone asks you for help, what's it like to go to NC State? It probably makes you puff out your chest a little bit and feel pretty good to give them some advice. So it is gratifying to share expertise, ask questions, listen, and care. Pay attention. Just listen. Two ears, one mouth. And that gives you the freedom to be vulnerable, which is our next tip today. That is in conversations with people to get to the deep relationship part where you get maybe the mingling master 18 to 20 right on the quiz. It doesn't have to mean you have to be extroverted. No, you can be who you are. If you didn't like big birthday parties as a kid, that's totally great. But the idea is, as an adult and in the world of work, it's really important to interact with other people. I mean, there's very little that you do all by yourself. It's always about teams. So let your guard down and be real. You can say, I am struggling right now during this pandemic while I'm a college student. This allows for a mutual bond with another person. It just lets go of the pressure valve. We all have this primary question that Keith Ferrazzi talks about in his book, Never Eat Alone. It drives our emotions, our actions, and defines our identity. Wonder what your primary question is. What drives you? If you can get to that level of conversation with another person, that's vulnerability. Even talking about your mission statement, why you feel your purpose is on this planet, that makes for a very deep, meaningful relationship, which I often refer to as refrigerator rights. And actually, behind me is my refrigerator. I'm not sure if you can see it in my kitchen, but who feels really comfortable walking in your house when we're not in a pandemic and we're not distancing and just opening your refrigerator and grabbing a drink? Those people that come into your mind are the people you have deep relationships with. I believe our souls are not just hungry for fame, power, and wealth, but for meaning. And I love considering having more time with less people. And right now we're in our small bubbles. So, meaningful dialogue. Have something to say and say that something with passion. We're doing most of this virtually now. We can use our three W's, which is, wait 6 feet away and you can interact with your mask on, wearing your mask and washing your hands. But when you meet someone, even if it's virtually, look like you're excited to be there. Introduce yourself, ask them what they do, how they might be connected to this virtual gathering you've gone to. and dare to be different, have a very creative, unique introduction. And then, if you are in some kind of Zoom meeting with a lot of people, don't be afraid to unmute and connect with someone and chat with them and share email addresses. Look for invitations, even if it's a one on one Zoom where you've asked for advice, to share some interesting facts about you, maybe where you're from and what you're studying. And also look for things you have in common. When we're back in person with people, this works and it works virtually. When you walk in, there's this rule of 12. The first 12 words, the first 12 steps, and the first 12 inches is what people see and how they make a first impression of you. And then after you meet someone, you want to follow up with them, usually 3 days after you meet, with a nice handwritten thank you note or email so that you can nurture the relationships. Some students in my class who have taken the class maybe a couple of years ago come back to me and say, "Will you write me a letter of recommendation?" And I'll often say, "I haven't really had the opportunity to keep in touch with you." That's why it's so important to nurture the relationships. So don't be afraid to reach out to someone during the pandemic and just ask them for advice. Make sure to watch my video on informational interviews to give you some additional tips. And let's all become mingleaholics.